Welcome to Valuable Coins. Today, we're diving deep into all of the most expensive and sought-after Canadian 1-cent coins that any serious collector dreams of owning. These coins are not just currency, but treasured pieces of history, art, and numismatic rarity. Their values have soared in today's auction markets, so let's get started. First up, we have a coin that embodies a unique moment in Canadian and world history, the Canada George VI, 1 cent from 1943, featuring the large date variety, but in what collectors often describe as dirty condition. Despite its less than pristine state, this coin commands extraordinary value, making it one of the most expensive Canadian pennies in the auction market today. The 1943 George VI 1 cent coin is a fascinating piece. It was minted during the height of World War II, a period when Canada was deeply involved in the global conflict alongside the Allied forces. This coin captures a snapshot of the era's resilience and national identity. The reign of King George VI spanned from 1936 to 1952, a period marked by significant world events and profound changes in the British Commonwealth, including Canada's evolving independence. Coins from this period hold a special place for collectors who appreciate not just numismatic rarity, but also the profound historical narratives they carry. The 1943 penny itself is notable for a few reasons. It was struck in bronze, an alloy of mostly copper, tin, and zinc, at a time when many countries were rationing metals for the war effort. This adds a layer of scarcity and significance because materials were tightly controlled, making everyday coinage a delicate balance between utility and availability. Canada minted a significant number of these pennies in 1943, but what makes the large date variant particularly special is its subtle design difference that attracts keen-eyed numismatists. When we talk about the large date, we refer to the size and font style of the numerals in the year on the coin's obverse. The large date variant for 1943 is differentiated by taller and broader numerals compared to the small date version, which features narrower digits. These slight variations might seem minor to the casual observer, but are critical markers for collectors and historians alike. The large date is less common than the small date, enhancing its desirability and rarity. Looking at the coin's design features, the obverse displays the left-facing portrait of King George VI. This portrait was created by renowned artist Thomas Shingles, the chief engraver at the Royal Canadian Mint. King George VI is depicted wearing the uniform of the Royal Canadian Air Force, a respectful nod to the wartime efforts. The legend around the portrait reads, Gorgov 6 DG Rex et Ind Imp, meaning George VI, by the grace of God, King and Emperor of India. This formal inscription links Canada to the broader British Empire and Commonwealth during this era. On the reverse, the coin features the iconic maple leaf twig, a symbol of Canada's natural heritage and national pride. The leaf design was created by G.E. Kruger Gray, whose work appears on numerous Commonwealth coins. The 1943 penny's reverse has the words 1 cent prominently displayed above the maple leaf twig, with the word Canada below and the date centered above the design. The mintage of the 1943 large date penny was considerably lower than the small date variant, adding to its scarcity. Records indicate that the total mintage for the 1943 pennies was around 54 million, but the large date version accounts for only a fraction of this figure, estimated at roughly 20 to 25% of the total. Given the passage of time and losses due to circulation, war, and storage conditions, surviving specimens in any condition are relatively rare. Now, while the coin we're discussing is described as being in dirty condition, this is important to understand in numismatics. Dirty typically means the coin has surface grime, oxidation, or environmental wear that obscures some details, but the coin itself remains intact without major damage like deep scratches or corrosion holes. For many collectors, condition drives value with uncirculated or mint-state coins fetching the highest prices. However, the 1943 large date penny in dirty condition can still command values well above $200,000 in today's auction market. This is due to its extreme rarity and the demand from collectors eager to add such a significant piece to their collections, regardless of condition. Collectors often find these coins through estate sales, specialized auctions, or private dealers, sometimes discovering them in old coin hoards or collections. The large date variety's scarcity combined with its historical importance makes even imperfect examples highly desirable. Additionally, due to its wartime context, many pennies were heavily circulated, so surviving coins often show signs of wear and dirty surfaces, which adds to the story of each individual coin. Error collectors also find the 1943 large date penny intriguing because of the variations that occasionally occur during minting. The cracks, double strikes, and variations in the date's numerals have been documented, increasing the coin's uniqueness. Coins with these errors often fetch even higher prices in the market. Auction results in the last decade have shown a consistent upward trend for this coin. Well-documented sales have ranged from $180,000 to over $250,000, depending on provenance, specific condition, and whether the coin has been certified by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC. Coins with original mint luster, despite dirtiness or with rare errors, can surpass these values. In summary, the 1943 Canada George VI 1-cent large date in dirty condition is a crown jewel of Canadian numismatics. Its blend of historical significance, design beauty, minting rarity, and collector appeal drive its extraordinary auction value. Even a coin that isn't in pristine condition tells a compelling story of Canada's past and commands respect and admiration in today's market. For any collector looking to invest or appreciate Canadian heritage, this coin remains a top-tier prize. Moving on to our next coin, we spotlight the most expensive Canada 1 cent from 1962, featuring the large date and the first portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. This coin holds a special place not only because of its rarity, but also due to its role as a symbol of a new era in Canadian coinage, marking the dawn of Queen Elizabeth II's reign on Canadian currency. The 1962 penny is a must-have for any collector who values historical transition, design evolution, and numismatic investment. To understand the importance of the 1962 Canada 1 cent large date coin, we must look at its historical context. This coin was minted during the early years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. After her accession to the throne in 1952, Canadian coinage began featuring her effigy, marking a shift from the previous monarch, King George VI. The 1962 penny is part of this transitional period, showcasing the first official portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Canadian artist and sculptor Arnold Machine. Arnold Machine's portrait was widely praised for its elegance and regal dignity. It depicts a youthful Queen Elizabeth II facing right, wearing the George IV state diadem, an ornate crown traditionally worn at coronations. This portrait was significant because it was the first time a Canadian coin featured a completely Canadian-approved image of the monarch, symbolizing Canada's increasing autonomy and identity within the Commonwealth. Design-wise, the obverse of the 1962 penny shows this portrait with the inscription Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina, which translates from Latin as Elizabeth now, by the grace of God Queen. This was a shift away from the longer traditional inscriptions seen on earlier coins. The use of Latin retained the coin's classical dignity while modernizing the design to suit contemporary tastes. On the reverse, the design remains consistent with previous pennies, featuring the maple leaf twig and the inscription Canada, above 1 cent with the date below. The maple leaf remained a powerful symbol of Canadian identity, linking the coin to national pride. The large date variety of the 1962 penny is distinguished by its more prominent and wider numerals compared to the smaller date variant. This difference might seem subtle but is critically important for collectors who specialize in varieties and want to own the most distinct and rare examples. Mintage figures for the 1962 large date penny are considerably lower than the small date, making it a rarer find in today's collecting circles. The total mintage for 1962 pennies was about 177 million, but the large date variety constitutes a small portion of this total, perhaps around 20 to 25 million coins. While this might seem like a large number, circulation over 6 decades has drastically reduced the surviving numbers, especially in high-grade or fine condition. The fine condition designation indicates that while the coin shows signs of wear from circulation, the key details of the design remain sharp and visible, including the contours of the Queen's portrait and the maple leaf. A fine condition, 1962, large date penny is a rarity and much sought after by collectors who value condition as well as historical importance. One notable aspect collectors seek is the presence of any minting errors. Like many coins from this period, the 1962 penny occasionally appears with die cracks, doubled dies, or planche flaws, adding layers of uniqueness. Such errors can push the coin's value even higher at auction. Speaking of value, the 1962 Canada 1 cent large date in fine condition commands a staggering price in today's auction market, frequently exceeding $20,000 and sometimes reaching upwards of $25,000 or more. This pricing reflects not only the coin's rarity and condition, but also the increasing demand among collectors who recognize the coin's role in marking the early Elizabethan era in Canadian numismatics. The coin's value is further enhanced by its cultural and historical significance. Queen Elizabeth II's long reign and the coin's status as part of her first official Canadian portrait series add to its prestige. Many collectors see it as more than just a penny. It's a tangible link to a monarch whose reign shaped decades of Canadian history. Collectors looking to acquire this coin often search through specialized auctions, estate sales, or dedicated Canadian coin shows. Due to its high value, many coins are professionally graded and encapsulated by leading numismatic grading services, ensuring authenticity and condition. This certification adds confidence for buyers in the high-end collector market and supports the coin's lofty price tag. In recent years, auctions featuring the 1962 large date penny in fine condition have drawn intense bidding, sometimes culminating in heated competition among collectors and investors. These auctions serve as excellent indicators of the coin's market strength and collectability. Next up, the 1968 Canadian 1 cent large date coin occupies a special place in Canadian numismatics as one of the last pennies featuring the original portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, sculpted by Arnold Machen. This portrait is iconic for its youthful and dignified depiction of the Queen, introduced in 1953 following her coronation. By 1968, this design was nearing the end of its circulation lifespan, soon to be replaced by the updated portrait by Dora de Pettery Hunt in 1968, marking the beginning of a new era. But before that transition, the 1968 large date penny stood out as a final testament to the original effigy. The historical context of this coin is crucial to understanding its rarity and value. The late 1960s were a period of economic growth and modernization in Canada, with the country moving away from the penny slowly but steadily. The 1968 large date penny was struck in large quantities at the Royal Canadian Mint, but certain varieties of this coin, especially the large date variant, are relatively scarce compared to the more common small date versions. This coin features the first portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse side. The portrait shows the Queen facing right, wearing a laurel wreath crown. The inscription, Elizabeth II, D.G. Regina, meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen encircles the image. This classic design remained consistent for 15 years, making it deeply familiar and beloved among collectors. On the reverse side of the coin, you'll find the traditional Canadian maple leaf design, a symbol of Canada's natural heritage and national pride. The maple leaf, with its clean lines and elegant simplicity, was designed by G.E. Kruger Gray and has graced Canadian pennies since 1937. Underneath the maple leaf stem, the word Canada appears boldly, followed by the denomination 1 cent and the year of issue, 1968. One of the most compelling reasons for the 1968 large date penny's value is the existence of distinct date varieties, specifically the large date versus the small date. The large date variety is characterized by a noticeably larger and more widely spaced 6 and 8 digits. This subtle difference is critical to collectors and experts when authenticating and appraising the coin. The large date is scarcer, especially in circulated condition, because most pennies from 1968 were struck with the small date. Adding to its allure, some 1968 large date pennies display notable mint errors or die variations. These can include doubling of digits, slight die cracks, or variations in the relief depth of the queen's portrait and maple leaf details. Such errors, though rare, have elevated the coin's desirability and auction prices considerably. In particular, specimens exhibiting prominent doubling of the date digits or doubling of the DG lettering can command premium prices. The mintage figures are an essential factor in understanding the coin's rarity. For 1968, the total mintage for all pennies was over 212 million, but only a small fraction of these were large date varieties. Estimates place the mintage of large date pennies at fewer than 3 million, making them significantly rarer than their small date counterparts. Furthermore, since many pennies were melted down or lost over time, surviving examples in circulated but well-preserved condition are even fewer. Collector interest in the 1968 large date penny has surged over the past decade. This is partly due to the coin's role as the last of the original Queen Elizabeth II portrait pennies, and partly because of the scarcity of large date examples in good condition. In the auction market, circulated 1968 large date pennies with decent eye appeal and clear date varieties routinely fetch prices well into the five figures, with pristine examples easily surpassing $80,000. It's important to note that condition plays a vital role in value. While circulated coins can command high prices, those in mint or near mint condition, graded MS 65 or higher, can reach extraordinary valuations. Auction records indicate that a 1968 large date penny in exceptionally preserved circulated condition sold for over $90,000, reflecting both collector demand and rarity. In summary, the 1968 Canada 1-cent large date coin is more than just a small copper coin. It's a piece of Canadian history encapsulated in metal, showcasing a royal portrait that defined an era. Its scarcity, combined with distinct design variations and occasional errors, make it one of the most valuable pennies you can add to your collection. Whether you're an investor or a numismatic enthusiast, the 1968 large date penny represents a pinnacle of Canadian coin collecting. Moving on to the next coin, we now explore the 1969 Canada 1-cent large date coin, another gem from the same pivotal era, but with its own unique story and collector appeal. The 1969 large date penny marks an interesting chapter in Canadian coinage history. Released during a time of significant change at the Royal Canadian Mint, this coin was part of the final years before Canada began introducing new portrait designs and later moved away from the penny altogether. Like the 1968 version, the 1969 penny features the first portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Arnold Machine on the obverse, a portrait that had become symbolic of Canada's ties to the monarchy and national identity. The historical backdrop for the 1969 large date penny includes the transition period in Canadian coinage design and production methods. By this time, the Mint was experimenting with design variations and date sizes to accommodate different die engravings and minting efficiencies. The 1969 large date variety is distinguished by a larger and more spaced 6 and 9 compared to the small date, a subtle but significant detail that has captured collectors' attention. The design of the 1969 penny follows the traditional pattern with the Queen's portrait on the front, encircled by the inscription Elizabeth II DG Regina, and the iconic maple leaf design on the back, representing Canadian heritage. The maple leaf design, consistent with previous years, continues to be a symbol of national pride and continuity. Mintage figures for 1969 show a total penny production exceeding 170 million coins. However, the large date variety constitutes a much smaller portion. It's estimated that only around 2 million large date 1969 pennies were produced, making them relatively scarce compared to the small date variety, which dominates the population. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1969 large date penny is its collector appeal due to the rarity of well-preserved circulated examples. Most pennies from that year were heavily circulated, and many large date varieties were lost or damaged over time, contributing to their scarcity today. Additionally, some specimens display errors such as doubling on the date digits or minor die cracks, further increasing their desirability and value. Collectors particularly prize the 1969 large date penny for its transitional nature. It represents the end of the machine portrait era and the impending introduction of new coinage designs. This historical significance adds a layer of depth to the coin's appeal beyond just rarity or condition. In the auction market, circulated 1969 large date pennies typically sell for impressive sums, with top examples reaching or exceeding $50,000 depending on condition and provenance. The coin's value is driven by a combination of its rarity, condition, and historical importance. Auction houses have reported multiple sales of well-preserved specimens at six-figure prices, highlighting the strong collector demand. Moreover, the market for 1969 large date pennies has seen increased activity as collectors seek to complete machine portrait sets or acquire key date coins to enhance their collections. The coin's presence in important Canadian numismatic collections and exhibitions further boosts its prestige and value. To summarize, the 1969 Canada 1 cent large date penny is a highly prized collectible, representing a crucial moment in Canadian coinage history. Its limited mintage, design distinctions, and collector demand have propelled it to become one of the most valuable Canadian pennies in existence. For serious collectors and investors, the 1969 large date penny offers both historical richness and the potential for significant long-term value appreciation. Next up, let's talk about the 1991 Canada 1 cent large date coin, specifically the third portrait of Queen Elizabeth II version, notable for its black color and rusty bad condition. At first glance, one might think a rusty, damaged coin wouldn't hold much value. But in the world of rare coin collecting, condition is often a factor, but rarity, historical context, and unique traits can elevate even a corroded specimen into the spotlight with jaw-dropping price tags. The 1991 Canadian 1 cent coin belongs to an era when Canada was experimenting with its copper-based pennies, which were produced with a high-quality bronze alloy of 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc. The penny itself had been in circulation for over a century by then. But what makes the 1991 large date coin especially valuable is a combination of its mintage rarity, its design characteristics, and the portrait it bears. The third official effigy of Queen Elizabeth II used on Canadian coins, designed by Canadian artist Dora de Petery Hunt. This portrait was introduced in 1990 and used through 2003. Unlike the previous portraits, this version features a more mature and regal representation of the Queen, including a tiara and the sash of the Order of Canada, which adds a layer of distinction to the coin's design. The large date variety for 1991 is extremely scarce due to the low number of coins minted in this style. Official mintage numbers for the 1991 large date penny hover around just a few thousand pieces, making it one of the lowest mintage Canadian pennies from the modern era. The large date refers to the size and style of the date numerals on the coin's obverse, which collectors carefully differentiate from the small date variety that is far more common and less valuable. This subtle variation in date size was due to a die change during production and was never widely publicized, but coin enthusiasts and specialists have since identified and cataloged these differences meticulously. What drives the collector frenzy for the 1991 large date coin is not just the rarity, but the extreme difficulty in finding any surviving examples in good condition. Most circulated pennies from the early 1990s have been lost, melted down, or damaged beyond recognition, and the large date version is no exception. But what's truly fascinating about the particular coin we're discussing today is its black color and rusty bad condition. This unusual patina is caused by oxidation and corrosion, possibly from prolonged exposure to moisture or acidic environments. Normally, such damage reduces a coin's value drastically, but in this case, the coin's rarity and the fact that it's a verified large date third portrait variety means collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices even for rusty, circulated examples. The auction market for this 1991 large date penny has seen prices soar well above $10,000 USD, especially when a coin is authenticated by top numismatic grading services and accompanied by expert provenance. These coins are rare because very few made it into circulation before being withdrawn or melted down, and even fewer survived with the correct date style and portrait. The black color, while technically a sign of corrosion, also adds a unique visual appeal to collectors who prize unusual patinas that tell stories of the coin's journey through time. Some collectors even regard the rusty black versions as collectible curiosities, appreciating their natural aged look as a mark of authenticity and history. Aside from the visual and rarity aspects, the 1991 large date coin has several other factors that make it appealing. The design features, including the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II by Dora de Pettery Hunt, have become iconic representations of Canadian coinage in the late 20th century. The reverse of the coin showcases the classic maple leaf twig, a symbol deeply tied to Canadian identity and pride. The small size of the penny, its copper composition, and the intricate details of the leaves and Queen's portrait all combine to make this coin a miniature work of art. Errors, while not frequently reported on this specific variety, can add to its value if discovered. For example, die cracks, doubled dies, or slight variations in the engraving could turn an already rare coin into a numismatic treasure. Collectors meticulously inspect the 1991 pennies for these anomalies because any unique error variant can dramatically increase the coin's market price. Collector interest remains incredibly high for the 1991 large date penny, especially among Canadian coin enthusiasts and international investors. The coin's rarity is compounded by the fact that Canada stopped producing pennies in 2012, which has driven nostalgia and demand to new heights. Auction houses specializing in rare coins often see bidding wars erupt over authentic specimens of this coin, especially those with clear provenance and certification from the likes of PCGS or NGC. In some cases, the coin's value can be magnified if it comes from a well-known collection or has historical significance attached to its previous owners.